Welcome to the world's greatest minds, where the most successful, impactful, and creative game changers on the planet deliver their hardest-hitting advice in 30 minutes or less. Every guest is specifically handpicked, there's no paid placements allowed, and every conversation is completely authentic and entirely unscripted. Big ideas, raw conversations, and real impact. This is World's Greatest Minds, and the revolution of thought starts now. Welcome back to World's Greatest Minds. I'm so excited to have my buddy Jeff Sauer join us. He's the co-founder of Measure Holdings, creator of Measure U, Profit School, and Measure Summit. He's a digital marketing consultant, teacher, and speaker. He's focused on helping entrepreneurs and teams master analytics and growth. He built and sold an agency that scaled to 50 employees and trained thousands of marketers. He's known for teaching ads, analytics, and measurement strategies to global audiences. I believe he has one of the largest, if not the largest, measurement event in the world. He's a digital nomad who's lived and worked across 40 different countries, combining lifestyle and freedom with professional excellence. He's also, fun fact, stayed at countless virtuoso properties and dined at numerous Michelin star restaurants, proof of his balance between business, success, and lifestyle design. His superpower is problem solving, and I can't wait to introduce everything that he has to share with our audience. Jeff, thank you so much for being here, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do this.
Dude, you've accomplished some stuff. It's funny because like any one thing that you've done would be another entrepreneur's crown jewel, right? You've got this amazing company, massive event. You've had an exit, which is, I think, the hardest thing to do entrepreneurially. And I feel like you're kind of just getting started. Is the way that from the outside looking in, every time you and I interact, you know, you're just ramping up. So talk to me a little bit about, you know, where do you find the time? How do you get all that done?
Yeah, I love it. So I always say that I don't have FU money, I have screw you money. And when you have screw you money, you act a little bit differently than if you have FU money. And so maybe that's part of why I still keep on going, even though I maybe don't need to. But I just really enjoy the game. I'm young, I'm in my early 40s, and I have a kid who's 6 by the time this thing goes out. So, and I want to set a good example for him as to how life is. And I don't want him to see him, I don't want to be like the dad who just doesn't do anything. And so I'm motivated by things that interest me. I don't have ADD, but I might have ADD when you see all the things that I'm doing. So I like to just try new things, and I like to learn new skills and become good at things. And sometimes I get a little bit bored with it, or I fall out of love with it, or I want to go on and conquer the next thing. And that's why I do all these different things. So I think I like that you're saying it as a benefit. In high school, that might have been a bad thing, right? But over time, it becomes a fulfilled life and a lot of fun and a lot of really good stories that you can tell over dinner, drinks, or whatever.
Yeah, I really love that, especially the part about how it's not of benefit in more traditional environments, not just school, but 9-to-5s. I think people that are meant for entrepreneurship tend to find themselves really struggling anywhere there's a box, anywhere where you have to color within the lines. When did you know you were an entrepreneur?
Always. I think in like 3rd grade, I remember they said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And every kid's like fireman and, traditional things. And I wrote businessman because that's what my dad said that he was. So my dad, he wrote that he was a businessman. And at the time he was working at like actually a company that made hot dogs. So he was running a hot dog company. We call him the sausage king of Minnesota as a joke. And so I saw him do that, and then he got laid off, and they tried to move our family, and he started his own business. And when I was like 13. And so I watched him just struggle. And I watched him try to start a business and then actually get out on the other side and turn it into the point where, instead of not being able to buy clothes for the new year and us not being able to spend any money and not do anything, he was starting to like actually make some money. And so that was pretty cool. And I got to see that. And then I fell into my own debt as well right after college. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't work the 9-to-5. I can't, I'll never, I just did the math and I was like, I'll never pay off my credit card. And I was
How'd you get into debt? Student loans or just being a kid? Like what was the...
Everybody told me I needed a house. It was right before the housing crash. And
so you and I have the same damn story. That's so
bought a house and furnished it. And I was like living like I was, there, thinking that I was there. And then I didn't really do a very good job on the math and like figuring for taxes, all that stuff. And I just basically, I realized that I just didn't have any money and that I was making, opening up a new credit card in order to pay for the other credit card and transferring balances and everything. And I was like, yeah, I can't do this very long. And I think my brakes went out on my car and I couldn't afford it. I was like, I can't do that. And so every time that something would happen, I'd have to open up another credit card in order to be able to do anything. Right. And I was like, this isn't the way to live. And I wasn't going to be doing it with the 9-to-5 because like the job was fixed. And I knew that there's other things out there. And so I sort of started side hustling. And then the side hustling became the primary hustle within a year, actually. So I think that I lasted about a year and a half at a regular job. And then I've been what I call an entrepreneur ever since.
What was your first business?
The first business was like a web design company. So
Okay.
just doing. I was a shit. I don't know if I can swear on here or not, but I was a bad web designer, and I was an okay programmer, and I was okay at things, and it was enough that I could get it going. But I knew that it probably wasn't the end all be all for me, and so that's when I started learning about the marketing piece of it as well. So my web design business very quickly became a paid search and organic search business. Getting traffic, and that became an analytics business added on top of it, and that was sort of the basically a complete end-to-end thing to get somebody leads online was really what my first business ended up becoming.
And that's the business you sold.
So that business I merged with another business. So one of my clients, I was like subcontracting. It was an agency. One of my friends from college, it was his stepdad that started it. And I actually started going on joint sales calls with them and became like a execution arm for them. They were selling, I was executing. And eventually, like, I was like, guys, this is going so well. Can you just make me a part of your company? And so I became an equity partner in this agency, and that's the one that ended up selling.
Dude, that's amazing. It's funny how you kind of work yourself into a position where they just can't live without you.
Yeah, it was crazy. I would say that it was not very calculated. It was actually a pretty smart move.
Yeah.
I just didn't know any better. I just thought that's how it should be. I was like, pay me, make me part of this thing, because I was like, I don't know if this is going to be here forever, but it's already working and we're making money. Like you should just make me a part of your business. And I definitely made them a lot of money. I made them more money than I made myself. And that's part of the screw you money part. Like I made a pretty good job, but I didn't, if I would have known what I knew then, I would probably would have taken a bigger percentage of the company. I might not have even have joined them. I might have just tried to apply those skills and stayed independent. But cashing out as a minority shareholder is not the same as cashing out as that founder. And so that's part of why I ended up leaving while I was still on the equity side. I ended up leaving to start a business where I had 100% ownership of it. And that's what ended up becoming now Measure You.
So you've got Measure You, you have Measure Summit, and you have Profit School. And Measure Summit, stop me if I'm getting the number wrong, but didn't you have 10,000 attendees the last time we talked?
Yeah, it does that.
Dude, I can't even wrap my mind. We just did an event with 1,000 people, and it was the most overwhelming, hardest thing I've ever done. It was so difficult to, you know what I mean, to fulfill at that level. How do you do 10,000?
It's crazy, this Measure Summit conference. It was actually started by Mercer, my business partner, and a guy named Julian, who had a cool website called Measure School about during the pandemic. And it started out, slow and steady, and it grew to this thing where there was, on a live stream, we're talking tens of thousands of people or 10,000 people on the live stream. And so I've taken over production of it for this latest edition, and it's going really well. We have, all these people are registering. The live event happens. The October 2025 event was fantastic. We had so many people attending it, and it was a great experience. Now, there's a lot of things we've learned in doing it. One is that programming is really hard. It's like herding cats, right? So if you even do a physical conference, you don't know who's going to be showing up. You don't, you got the time slots. You need to make sure that everything's working properly, that everything's happening. Same happens for an online virtual summit as well. And the only thing is, instead of worrying if somebody's going to show up on stage during their speaking slot, it's getting all the presentations. It's making sure they all mesh together. It's hosting all the different sessions and making sure that they're working properly, live streaming, all that stuff. And then you want to make it look like it's interactive. You want to make it look like it's a happening place to be and a fun place. And so that's a big part of really getting it right, is just making sure that you make the event feel like an event. The other thing is hyper focus. Measure Summit is really focused on measurement people. So we're not going and creating, we're not trying to be everything for everybody. It's really people who are professional in this area, and they want to be heard, and they want to have these techniques they can have, and they want to, hear from the great people. And there's really nobody who does it like we do. And so that's a big reason why we're able to get a good number of people there. We keep the content very focused, technical, advanced techniques, that type of stuff. So we just know who our audience is, and we have a very large percentage of them coming and showing up every single year, and it expands every year as a result.
Dude, that's so. I was talking to you a little bit on the pre-roll just to lob a grenade at you, and I hope this is okay, because one, I'll preface with saying I'm a student. I've paid for your education. I've actually built 3 businesses on the backs of what y'all taught, and I'm trying not to exaggerate here, but one of them in particular, I had the highest performing real estate investment campaign on the planet for 7 years. I say on the planet, we only ran in the United States, but that's how arrogant Americans are, right? We're like, oh, the whole world. This is the World Series. For 7 years, I had a cheaper cost per lead in every major market than any other real estate investor. And I did that because of what I've learned from measurement, specifically from what y'all were teaching. It was so extraordinarily powerful. So that's my preface. And now let me pay you the backhanded compliment. My experience with what you do and what you teach, I ran an ad agency. I had thousands of clients, and people are repelled by the practice and process of measurement. They're terrified of it. It's everything that they hated in school. It's math and accountability, and it's trying to, figure out what lever to pull and knob to turn. And I feel like you chose one of the hardest industries. Now, you're obviously the best at it, but talk to me about that. Like, how do you enter this industry? It's, that's so difficult in so many ways. And one, make it so accessible, but two, keep people from being afraid of it. Like, rope them in a way that, you can kind of sell them what they want, but really give them what they need.
Yeah. I mean, it's an evolving thing, right? So my answer might have been different in the past than it is now, but it was pretty easy. Like I always say, you don't choose a niche, the niche chooses you. And that's what ended up happening to me. So I was in the SEO world and I couldn't prove anything as fact. It was always like, I'll get back to you in 6 months, push a button and it might work, right? Ads was like, there's too many variables. There were so many people involved, so many cooks in the kitchen. You'd have to get the creative. You'd have to get participation from the client, a good landing page, all these different things. And then with measurement and analytics specifically, I knew I could trust those answers. I knew that it was facts, right? The data that was coming in. Now that's a moving target, like I said, like with ad blockers and cookie consent and everything like that. It's a little bit less where you're like, this is a fact, and it's more of like it's a directional piece of data.
But even so, what facts are facts and what implications are not. Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt a lot better talking to people about that. I felt better, more confident in what I was doing because I got into this career really young. We're talking early 20s with very limited business experience. And I'm sitting in boardrooms all over the US and I'm sitting at Google's offices talking about strategies for ads. It's like, how do I even know what I'm talking about? I read a few articles and I did a few things, but ultimately the numbers don't lie. And so if you can be aligned with the numbers, it gives you that level of confidence that you can say that, yes, this is something that I think that is the answer. I know this is the answer with a lot of confidence. And so I didn't like that gray area of suggesting something and not even knowing in my heart if it was going to work or not. And then, as the industry is going, that was the name of the game in the early 2010s, late 2000s, right? Basically, we were in a housing crisis, the global financial crisis. And from 2008 until 2011, there was no trust in anything. And so I basically played up to that. I was like, the only thing you can really trust in life is like that the economy's not doing great right now and what I tell you about these numbers. And so I'm teaching people in the classroom these numbers. I'm like, hey, you can actually go with this. You can use this. You can trust this stuff. Google's like the biggest tech company in the world, biggest ad platform in the world, SEO, they control everything. These numbers, they work. And so I had a lot of confidence and a lot of trust in it. And that came forward when I taught people in the classroom, when I taught people online. And then the economy started to do better. And suddenly I wasn't the unconfident guy who was just getting started anymore. I had ridden it out, approaching 30 years old. And suddenly I am the expert in this somehow. Like, it's weird. Like it just went from like, I don't belong here to I am here and I'm the guy that everybody trusts. And so I don't know if it was really like an overnight thing, but that's really what ended up happening. So then the next wave of like 2012 through like today, and with some ups and downs, pandemics and stuff like that, basically it wasn't even really that hard to get into, Kasim. Like it was just there because that's what people wanted. And then I didn't have to convince anybody anymore because enough people wanted that and liked that contrarian point of view. Now, finding new people can be challenging, right? New people coming in, it's like, how do you get them to get into this part? That's something I'm still trying to figure out. How do you expand? So we had a really easy time getting to our certain revenue numbers and getting an audience, but growing that audience 10x has been very elusive and very challenging. And that's what you're talking about right there, right? Like it's not a 10x growth opportunity. At least I haven't been able to prove that out yet.
A couple of things. First of all, I loved what you just said. 28 to 2011, there's no trust. And instead of playing into the value proposition of measurement, you played into the fear of the fact that they couldn't trust. And not played into, right? It was genuine, but I think that was really masterfully done just in terms of offer design. The thing that's interesting about what you do, and I'll say to the listeners, I'm not an affiliate. I'm not a shareholder. There's no benefit to me whatsoever in having said this. But for entrepreneurs who are listening, this is the needle mover. Like what Jeff teaches, everybody, it's so funny, man, because at Solutions 8, people would come to us and they were like, we need more traffic. We need more traffic. We need more traffic. And I'd be looking at what they're doing. I'm like, no, you don't. You have enough traffic. You don't know what to do with it. And it's because they weren't measuring. They didn't realize, like, oh, gosh, our fall off rate at this point in the funnel is abysmal if we just optimize that piece. But they had no idea. They didn't, they say, what is it? Prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. They had no opportunity to diagnose at all because they weren't tracking anything. So if you're looking to grow the business, scale the business, a word I hate, sell your business, stabilize your business, like, it doesn't matter. If you're not measuring, if you're not really digging into the data, it's the little hinge that swings the big door, to steal my buddy Ralph's saying. And forgive me for saying this, Jeff, correct me if you think what I'm about to say is wrong. I mean, this is something you can play who not how with, right? Like, they don't have to do it themselves if they don't want to. They can send an employee or a very adept EA and have them train with you and then inject into the business and sort of manage that part, which is something you do, right? Don't you offer like higher end certifications?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we can be your how for anybody who's looking at that, right? And yeah, we certify individuals. People do send their team members over. We actually have done for you services at Measure You as well, or done with you services as well. So there's all different, different flavors of what we do. But really, I would agree. It's actually there's some interesting truths that I've learned over the years, and that is the companies that struggle, the companies that aren't very long-term sustainable, they don't have the numbers and they're just looking at traffic. But the really good ones, they know their numbers so well. And even though they don't really flaunt it as analytics, they are very analytical. Like I worked with HubSpot and they were so on the ball. They knew exactly how many MQLs, SQLs, and qualified leads they had down to a number. And they had me verify that in Google Analytics, right? With like a whole project. And they just knew it. And they were looking at that every single day. And they go, Jeff, why is this number right? Why is it wrong? Right? Or why isn't this there? Those companies know that, but they don't call it like analytics. I think that's the thing. Analytics is a scary word. You think of like the nerds in baseball, you think of Moneyball, all kinds of stuff. And really the idea is that you have a number, or do you have some kind of metric that you can use that you can optimize towards to get it better? And if you choose the right one, then that will move the needle in your business. And so it could be leads. Like tracking how many leads you have and the source of them is analytics. But actually, if you're like, I need more leads and I need to know which sources are giving the most leads, that's actually just business, right? So I don't think that there needs to be as big of a line. And a lot of CEOs, they don't want to get in the weeds of what platform you use, which we often do sometimes get in the weeds with what platform it is. They just want the result. They just want to know leads are growing. They want to know what their North Star metric is and moving forward. And that's what measurement is ultimately. That's why we actually changed from measurement marketing and datadrivenyou.com to measureyou.com, because it's ultimately helping you figure out what numbers you need, whether that means creating a dashboard, whether it means integrating your different data sources so you have real-time views, all that stuff. That's ultimately what we focus on. And that is what the best companies do. The companies that are always, they don't have a North Star, ultimately they're always going for the next thing. And those aren't really companies a lot of times. They're a single tactic. Now, single tactic, single this, single that is a good way to get started. That's a good startup mentality, find something and ride it out. But if you want to be a sustainable company, you need to understand how these things all play together. And that's what we help people figure that out. Or if it's not even with us, if you need, that's what you need, a measurement person to help you with, or a measurement minded person. Now, if you're the CEO, you need to be measurement minded as far as guiding the team as to what's important, because if you can get more of that, you will be successful.
Yeah. Where do people start? If you're a business, and I think there's a minimum threshold, I'm sure. So maybe this is a two-part question. When do you really need to start treating measurement like its own role? I don't know if that's a revenue number, size number, year number. And then once you realize that you need to do that, what are the first steps to take? You mentioned building a dashboard, capturing data. Like if I'm just overwhelmed and I treat it like I did it when I was in my 20s. I didn't pay taxes for like 4 years in a row. And anything that came that was tax related, I had this box and I put it in the box and I put it in the closet. And that's more or less how I treated measurement for a long, long time too. So like if I want to take the box out and really start doing the right thing, when do I start? Where do I start?
Yeah. So I created this thing called the Small Data Framework back in the day, a couple of years ago. And it was really good for answering this question because I've gotten this question so many times. And the funny thing is, I even made this mistake, or I didn't really know when I started my own business, because I went from doing this for Fortune 500s and I was like, do I need to do the same thing I do for a Fortune 500 company that I need to do for my one person business? The answer is absolutely not, right? So if you're a small business, if it's just you, solopreneur, that's like the S in small data. You have one number and it's your bank account. It's money in, money out. Like that's what you need. You don't need any analytics tool whatsoever. Generally, you send an email, it makes money. You do a sales call, it makes money. Like that is your analytics tool. It's okay. right? The next one is micro, which is like a business of less than 10 people. When you're a micro business, usually you can just separate by two numbers. One is bottom of funnel, sales, leads, whatever fuels your economic engine. And the other one's top of funnel, impressions, clicks, the things that get you there, right? That might come from an ad platform. That might come from your email platform, but it's basically just that. It's micro stuff, right? Then it rounds out with the A, which is, mid-sized team. I think I call it agile. It's a more of an agile team. That's when you start to have a few more things that you might look at. You might do the middle of the funnel. You might be looking at your analytics more and more to see what's happening in between, but you need to know traffic, leads, and then you sort of tell the story in between. That's when you would probably need what we have at Measure You. That's when you need to maybe have a dedicated measurement person or take that class yourself and learn how to do that. Then you get into leveraged and leading edge people. That's when you're starting to do, like, leverage means you work with agencies and you hire an agency or a measurement person to do that. If it's not your core competency, that's usually in the 20 plus people, or actually like 100 plus people in your organization, maybe 10 people in your marketing department. And then leading edge, it's everything. It's all these like advanced things like server side tech tracking, attribution modeling, BigQuery, all these advanced techniques that you have. And so somewhere around that area, you can probably identify where you are. Generally speaking, I say only one KPI per person in your marketing department. So you can't have somebody responsible for 6 different things. You're just not big enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so bank account, and then it goes from there.
That one KPI per person, how are you measuring that? Like, if we can get tactical for a minute, do you have dashboards of preference? What do you use personally? And what do you recommend your clients use?
Yeah. So if you're a really small company and you're saying, hey, we just need to be responsible for leads, like even HubSpot, big company, was like, leads. We need this, and that, right? We just need different types of leads. That was just what their dashboard showed. It's that North Star metric. Now, when I say one KPI per person, I mean that you need to be one person can only be responsible for one thing. Like, it's really hard to say that you need to grow the YouTube channel and you also need to produce the podcast. Like, that's challenging, right? So one person can't do great at either of those things. You divide the focus. And so it's more of a whole focus on the person than anything. And so this is the answer to that one channel, one offer, one technique that you hear everybody about getting started. That's why that works, because you can't branch it out. And anything you do just dilutes your focus. But as you get larger, you can assign people to those different areas. A lot of that's aligned with like the job descriptions and the type titles you hire people for, where their expertise is, riding the hot hand, getting momentum going, that type of stuff. So that a lot of it comes down to what's already baked into the DNA of your company, and where do you have momentum. I think a lot of companies should just align towards and ride out momentum as much as they can, because that's really the market telling you what the answer is versus me telling you what the answer is. Like, everybody's a little bit different.
So love what you just said. Align towards momentum. That's absolutely brilliant. And that's also, I think, counter to conventional, like the data-driven knowledge. So many people get really romantic about how they make their money, get really romantic about what their business model is or what their mission, vision, values are. And I feel like they're just sailing into the wind. It's like, gosh, man, if you guys just, the wind's already blowing this way, like maybe that's what you should be into or do. And so I like that you would use the data to serve the entrepreneurial endeavor and not the other way around. And I think that's probably what's made you so successful, is you're an entrepreneur first. Because the people that are data nerds first, they're just intolerable. You know what I mean? Like, they just come in and they tell you a bunch of shit, and it's like, dude, I know what you think you're saying and doing is relevant, but we need to be nimble and we need to be able to move. And that's very like the data's left brained, the entrepreneurial endeavor is right brained. And so merging those two, I think that makes you like uniquely valuable in the space and in the ecosystem.
Yeah, it's usually you don't find both. I've been to a lot of conferences, analytics conferences, and generally I find the presentations to be a little bit boring and a little bit in the weeds. Most business people don't want that. That's where my ADD kicks in again, where I'm like, I don't really want to sit through this thing. But you need those people. You need those people on your team, the quants. You need the numbers people. And actually, I think that embracing that and recognizing the need for that is a big part of it. And then I actually don't think that you should be having those people lead your strategy, because they don't usually understand the business context. They're really in their role. So actually going back to what I was saying about one KPI per person, they can be responsible for their KPI, but it's going to be one that supports the vision, the leadership that's in place. I think a lot of companies, they think that like they don't lead the company in what they want to do. And it's very obvious to me when a company has really good and aligned leadership, because they're decisive. And when you're decisive, it makes the nerds and the quants and the people who are doing this stuff, it makes their lives so much easier and better. And so actually that's the best thing you can be, is decisive, because they'll just go and get you what you want. And their job's a lot easier too, because they know that they're doing the right thing.
I'm reading through my notes on you here, and you had 50,000 people enroll in your marketing training programs. 50,000. Like, that's a not insignificant number. As you're teaching this, talk to me about the fail points. When people go, obviously we're talking about what they're doing wrong, right? What do people do wrong when they really dive into this? They get good at the practice. Where should they be careful?
Yeah, I think one of the hard parts is whether this knowledge is good as an entrepreneur or good as an employee, right? So it's like, am I learning this stuff to get a job? Because every job description from 2008 until now says Google Analytics. Every
Mhm.
single marketing job description says you need to know Google Analytics, right? It's almost like Excel skills or that type of thing, or excellent written and oral communication skills. It's like Google Analytics, right? That made its way into a lot of job descriptions. So if you're doing that for that reason, then you're just using it to be proficient, and you may or may not use it all the time. If you go really far down the rabbit hole, but your company doesn't have a strategy, that can be a pretty big break point because you're bringing up ideas and nobody really cares because they don't think it's that cool and they don't know how it affects the business. And then I think if you're the business owner and you learn this stuff, you're not going to be the one that does it anyway. So
Mm.
it might be a crutch as well. So part of the reason why we had so many people enroll in the classes because we did something with AppSumo. So we had like an AppSumo deal where you could buy our courses and stuff like that. And it's a lot of one person businesses, a lot of like people who buy this just in case versus just in time. So they're buying this stuff just in case they need to learn that, or if a client wants it. And generally speaking, if they get into it for that reason, it's just knowledge that they probably don't need to use very often, especially in an AI first world. Like they're not going to need, like they can just consult AI now versus watching 12 hours of Jeff telling them how to run a tag on Google Analytics, right? So I think that really the fail point is thinking this is going to be more than it is, honestly. Like learning skills is important, but it's not the one skill that's going to be the breakthrough for you. It's skill applied to strategy, applied to real world business knowledge that's ultimately going to give you the best results. And probably analytics alone isn't going to give you that, like just learning Google Analytics. That's why we pivoted to strategy. That's why we're saying, here's your measurement strategy. Here's why you think about what you need to measure. Here's where you think about the journey the person's going through, taking these numbers and turning it into real humans and making these real humans, giving them what they want, knowing what they want, anticipating their needs, that type of stuff. And that's really a important, I think, aspect of all this is that we're helping real humans make real decisions and understand it in that context. And so that's where I think we've advanced beyond just the platform where to click stuff. And I think that's needed in this world. I mean, you inspired me, man. Like earlier this year, I saw you on stage talking about everybody. You used to have to just know, you used to have to definitively know that something was the answer and then you could teach it. And now it's like you just need to know that you need to have a theory that you can teach or show people how to do it, and then they can catch up to you, right? You only need to be a one step ahead instead of being 10 steps ahead. And I think that's the case here too. Is like you need to be able to understand if this is giving you the right data or not, if you can trust it, if your customers are coming in, if you can correlate it, if you're making the right ad spend decisions and all that. That's really where the skill is being able to understand, is this something that I can make a business decision off of? And that's
Mm.
really all that this is, Kasim. All that this whole thing is. The only reason why we're here is because people decided that data makes better business decisions and they want that data. That's why I have a business. That's why you guys were so successful as you were growing, is that the word analytics is like the worst word for this, like to talk about that. It's so scary. But ultimately, like, what if I said there's a magic potion where if you drank it, you just made all the right decisions in your business? And I called it that. If I called it magic potion that works, would you do it? You probably would. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, we have a marketing problem with analytics because it's mostly like analytics is a bad word for it. It's
Well, I
basically
like what
making better decisions.
you called it, a small business operating system, and I think that's exactly right. It's like, why track data you're not gonna use to make decisions, and why make decisions without data? So, a lot of people that go too deep in the data are tracking things that are superfluous, I think, because it's their comfort zone, and then a lot of people making decisions just by, licking their finger and sticking it to the wind. To be able to marry those 2, I think is really brilliant, and you've done it masterfully. Like, I don't remember the first time I engaged with measurement. You For me, it was measurement marketing. I worked with you guys prior to the rebrand, but it's been close to a decade for damn sure. Probably more than that, actually, when I think about it, because I sold GeoFlip in 2019, which I built off of your education. I had it for 7 years, 12, and I think I knew y'all at least a year before that because it took us some time to go through. So 2011. When did you start? When was the genesis of the whole
Yeah.
measurement piece?
I started teaching in a classroom in 2010 in Minneapolis, where I'm originally from. And Mercer started teaching around the same time. My
Yeah.
partner and co-founder. Yeah. So, yeah, we've been doing it for 15 plus years. And I'd done it before that. I'd done it like lunch and learns for my company. I was the measurement guy inside of my agency, but then actually teaching other people, we've been doing it for a long time.
I love it, man. I want to, if you don't mind, to pivot just because I can't not touch on this because what you've done is not just it's aspirational, but it's also it's so intimidating. Talk to me about how you travel full time while building businesses. Like that to me just feels impossible.
Yeah. So the travel full time was during from 2015 till 2019 when our son was born. And so I actually have done it since then. I've been traveling. I just got back from a trip yesterday. And so you have to have parameters. You have to have really good communication with your partner if you're doing it with a partner. It's a little bit easier to do it solo, but it's also a lot more lonely. So I
Yeah.
was married. We're still married, but we were married doing this, and we basically had to express preferences. I was like, hey, my primary thing is building this business, and then I want to go and do stuff afterwards. And hers was like, she had quit her corporate job and didn't really know what she wanted to do. So she's like, I want to go out and explore and do things. So we had to sort of figure that part out, right? How we were going to travel together. And then, basically it's like anything. I had thought about my business for a year about creating an online business before I actually did. So I'm just like anybody else, right? Like I
Mm.
just did nothing, and I was like I was busy every day, but I wasn't actually producing anything. And then I was like, you know what, if I want this, and I made no money. I made about as much money as you'd expect from doing that. I think the first year that I was an online entrepreneur, I made $1,000
Yeah.
from courses, and I had to supplement it through consulting and a bunch of other stuff. And so ultimately, I just focused, man. I just said, this is my thing. So I pre-sold courses like they always recommend that you do, pre-selling offers. I had to do that. I had to deliver it, figure out how to deliver it. I had to dedicate time to getting this thing done. So I made it more of a gamification where I reward myself with doing these things once I was done. So like one course I created while we were in Argentina. And I said, I can't even go out there and I can't go to wine country until I finish this thing. We're going to go to
Mm.
well, this date, the course has to be done. And you know what? You get it done a lot faster when you give yourself that deadline. Another one in Thailand. I can't go to this trip in Thailand. I'm going to reward myself. So I just rewarded myself with getting the work done. And that had to happen. The other thing is we stayed in a lot of Airbnbs. We'd always get a second room. And I brought a 27-inch iMac with me in the oversized luggage compartment to every country we went to. So I'm like lugging this gigantic iMac box and putting it in the spare bedroom of everywhere we stayed and doing this, recording courses, creating the product. And then I'd go out there and have fun afterwards. So I had a lot of fun, lived it up, lived in, did the whole nomad life. It was amazing, bumming around Thailand on a scooter, spending the entire day hanging out and then spending a couple hours online at night running my business. It was pretty cool. So it's just whatever you have to sort of decide how you're going to go about it, or you have to just say, I'm going to do this thing and make it a priority. And I didn't right away, but I had to if I wanted to sustain us as a family.
Yeah. So a couple of, I think, really phenomenal pro tips you just dropped. Number one is the second room. That makes a lot of sense. B&Bs are preferable to me because you get more of the creature comforts than you do at a hotel, like full kitchen or washer dryer if applicable. I love that you said lugging the big iMac around. Screen size makes a big deal for
Big
me.
difference.
Yeah, the productivity and I need a second screen. If I have a second and I can take my laptop and my iPad and I can
Yep.
mirror screens, and
Yep.
suddenly I feel like I'm twice as productive. So I think if for anybody listening that wants to like really dig into that, those little things aren't little things, especially if you're really trying to pull it off full time. Where are your favorite places to travel? Like, give me your top 5.
Yeah.
Specifically as a digital nomad, not just
Yep.
to sightsee, but like if you're going to work and live and you know what I mean? Like, where do we go?
Yeah. Got it. Number one has to be Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
We lived there longest, and it's just everything you need. Like there's all these great cafes. There's a lot of other people who are doing it. It's relatively inexpensive. The weather's pretty much spot on during the time that I went there. And they have some really bad weather seasons like the burning season and stuff. But during that October through February range, it's the best place weather-wise to be. Affordable, all kinds of good. There's so many things to do. Like I just went back there with our son last year and we had a blast. Like we was all the old stomping grounds and just had an awesome time.
Looking at the pictures right now and it is stunning.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
It's
it looks
amazing.
beautiful. All right, so
We
Chiang Mai.
I ran the business from a camper van in New Zealand. That was not one that
Oh,
I'd
that's awesome.
recommend. I'm not sure that I would recommend that one, but because the internet was not very good, but it's beautiful. I tried Bali, didn't like it as much. Italy, can't find a reliable internet connection, and the beds are hard. So Argentina was a good one. We lived, we were in Buenos Aires. That was great. I think being in a city is definitely a good way to look at it. To go about things is to actually be in a city. Man, I don't know if I'm trying to think of a five definitive five list because you could go to like nomadlist.com and look at all the different places. We did Lisbon, I did Porto, Portugal.
Mm,
Porto was amazing. That was a great work life balance. We had an Airbnb there, so I would say there like pretty much anywhere in the world. Like we did it on 6 continents, right? We I ran my business on 6 different continents. So it's hard to even say what the best ones were versus the worst ones. But those are my guideposts: Buenos Aires, Porto, Portugal, and Chiang Mai, and then just Australia, New Zealand. If you can make it there, it's great, and the time works out really well actually for running your business because you can do calls 1 or 2 hours a day, and then the rest of the time nobody's even bothering you in the U.S.
yeah, I was in Italy for a couple of weeks, and I had that experience to where it dips into the evening. I got my calls out of the way, and then I'm tired enough to really hold the line. I'm like, it makes it easier to say no to things. Dude, this has been an amazing conversation. I really appreciate just your absolute wealth of knowledge. What am I not asking you that a smarter person would ask you?
Probably what's the one thing that I should measure for a specific type of business? Like maybe you look at AEO or any business, right? Like what would be my KPI or what should I get people to measure?
Yeah. So I own AEO.co for the listener, and I'm trying to figure out how to measure that right now. I'm glad you brought it up. Where would you start? What would you do there?
Yeah. So there's a few different ways to take it. So if we're talking about and I don't want to talk about Google Analytics world, right? I just in measurement, it's like subscriber growth and retention and engagement.
Mm,
Like, are they more or less engaged with the posts that are happening? What's the right frequency to put things out there? How often should we be communicating with somebody? How often should we be doing this or that? And then are people engaging with what we have? And how do we get them to engage more? And how do we get them to get to that point where they're there? And then if you have a paid version of it, how do you go from free to paid? What's the how do you get how do you get leads coming in? What is do you have a sequence in order to convert people? So just looking at all the different breakpoints in your business to see how do you have one thing that you can pay attention to for each step of the way. And then your team, you don't have to manage your team to say, hey, why aren't we doing this? You can say, hey, come up with some ideas, or here's your number. You come to me with how you're going to make that number look better or how you're going to improve upon it.
dude, I love that. You come to me with how we're going to improve upon this number. I was at an event with Joe Polish. Do you know Joe?
Of them, yeah.
I love him a lot, and he's got some of the best quotables of anybody I know. And he said it was the first half I've known. He said that which is measured is managed. And I'm like, okay.
Hmm.
And then he said that which is measured and reported on is managed and grows.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Really smart.
like I've always been missing the measurement piece, but then I do it by myself and I don't tell anybody about it or my employees are supposed to do it. But having people report on things like you just even doing what Alex Ramosi says and just wake up every morning and just look at your bank account. I've been doing that with my E-Trade. And I know this is so superstitious, but I swear to God, dude, every time I look at it, it goes up. I'm like, don't stop looking. Jeff, this is awesome, dude. I really appreciate you. Where can people find you?
Yeah, go to measureyou.com. We have a free newsletter we send out a couple times a week. We have our pro membership as well if anybody's interested in that or learning more about it. And we do the annual Measure Summit conference, which is going to be more than annual starting in 2026. So go to measuresummit.com and get on that mailing list and check that out as well. And we're basically always about helping people figure out how to measure what they need to measure. And we're evolving with the times, getting more interested and more involved with the more advanced techniques. So if you want to geek out, we're there for you. If you want to just know what your strategy should be, feel free to talk to me. I can help you with that piece. And measureyou.com is the place to be to find
And
more
you
about
have
me.
a litany of free resources too on Measure You. Like I think what y'all give away, most people would charge for. So for the listener, follow Jeff, take a look at what he's offering. Their content is unparalleled. I've used y'all in literally every business that we've ever started. Really grateful to and for you, man. This has been amazing. What an inspiring conversation with Jeff Sauer, a true innovator who has shown us that data isn't just numbers, it's the foundation of smarter decisions and exponential growth. From scaling an agency to educating tens of thousands through summits and courses, Jeff's work proves that when you align expertise with passion, the impact is limitless. And his journey as a global digital nomad reminds us that success is not just about what you build, but also how you live while building it. Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your vision for the future of analytics, which I know is a word that we're not going to use any longer. You truly are one of the world's greatest minds. And to everyone listening, make sure to connect with Jeff online, join his newsletter, and explore his platforms to learn directly from one of the leading minds in measurement and growth. This is World's Greatest Minds, where strategy meets freedom. And today, Jeff Sauer showed us how to design both.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You've just heard another powerful episode on World's Greatest Minds. For links, resources, and full show notes from this episode, go to worldsgreatestminds.com, where you can also subscribe so you never miss another episode, drop us a review because your feedback fuels the mission, and share this with somebody who's willing to buck the status quo. Most importantly, tell us who you think we should interview next. Nominate the people who you believe have the results, the track record, and the brilliance to truly qualify as one of the world's greatest minds. Join us weekly as we forge innovation in real time. This is World's Greatest Mind. The revolution of thought continues with you.